Authorities worldwide are trying to contain the spread of coronavirus, and yet this morning the number of deaths and infections continues to grow. Hong Kong, as of this morning, is the second place outside China to report a fatality. The first death in Hong Kong we can tell you about today. Health workers in that city are on strike for a second day, trying to force a complete border closure. Let's go again this morning to Chris Brown, who begins our coverage in Hong Kong live for us this morning. The first death, as I mentioned, Chris, being reported. What are the details there of the person who has passed away from this coronavirus, and what's the reaction to this there in Hong Kong?
Well, it's alarming for a couple of reasons. Yes, it is the first death, but also this person was only 39 years old, so that's very young. Now, even though he did have an existing health condition, he had diabetes, a couple of other things are also concerning. One, he only got diagnosed 5 days ago, so that's pretty recently. And the other thing was, just even up until a few hours before he died, doctors said they thought he was doing okay. They thought there wasn't going to be an issue, but then something happened and all of that changed. He also apparently made his mother sick as well. So he got this disease in Wuhan, came back to Hong Kong, made his mom sick, and now there are a total of 17 people here who have contracted the virus. And also worrying, in 4 cases, authorities say they're not actually sure how these people got sick, and they're referring to an invisible chain of infection. So all of that, lots of cause for anxiety, and that's what we found when we talked to people who were buying face masks here in Hong Kong today.
I think that's the sentiment in Hong Kong right now. It is festering over the past couple of days and the first death, and it might change the status quo in Hong Kong at this moment, but we have no idea whether the Hong Kong government will shut down all of the immigration control points.
So again, that call for that strict, total border closure. Chris, the other story that we've been talking about there in Hong Kong is the health workers' strike, a second day of that underway. Tell me the latest details on their further calls and whether there's any indication Carrie Lam and the authorities there are listening.
Well, with some 20,000 people infected with the coronavirus just across on the mainland, the concern you hear from the healthcare workers is twofold. One, that people can literally walk across the border and get treated here, and that could overwhelm the hospitals and the healthcare system. And two, of course, it could bring the coronavirus here in a much greater way to Hong Kong. Now, Carrie Lam spoke about this today. She said there's not going to be, for the moment, any change. The 2 border crossings that were left open yesterday will stay open. She said that's for economic reasons, because she says the damage would just be too severe. And here we hear her urging the healthcare workers to end their job action.
The consequences yesterday were quite serious. Important services, critical operations have been affected, whether it is in the neonatal ICUs, in the isolation wards, or patients awaiting certain cancer treatments. All these have been affected.
Now, even without a total shutdown, the economic damage is mounting by the day. We heard from Cathay Pacific, Hong Kong's flagship air carrier. They are cutting 90% of their capacity to mainland China. That's going to make a big hit on them. And in Macau, which of course is world famous for its gambling, they're shutting the craps tables, closing the casinos down. There will be no operations for 2 weeks, so all bets are off there because of the coronavirus.
Chris, thank you. It's a big part of the story, and it's good to have you there live in Hong Kong. Our Chris Brown with the latest from there.